This is Charlie Flowe, World Sports Show. I'm joined live by Mark Parsons, head coach of Washington Spirit, team in the NWSL. I want to thank you for joining me, Mark, today.
Thank you, Charlie, for having me. A pleasure as always.
So we got the NWSL draft coming up in a couple of weeks. You were very busy last year in the draft, but not as busy this year. I think there's a lot of people don't know what goes into the draft. You, Lloyd, and your Washington Spirit staff, probably a lot of sleepless nights going through. I mean, you knew you had the one pick. A lot of people knew it was probably going to be done, but just going through that, what was some of your approach to the other picks and then teams approaching you on trades? How does that all go down?
Yeah, it's a bit it potentially is a bit quieter for us this year. We have one pick at the moment in the fourth round, and we had the opportunity to grab players that were absolute needs for us and would make us better, without kind of going through the gamble and the mad rush in the draft, especially our first round pick. We had number six, and there's going to be quality at number six. There's going to be quality way past six, but we didn't feel we could get what we didn't think we could find a Catherine Reynolds or an Angela Salem in the draft this year, and them two have been especially superb the last 2 years, and been a huge fan since I took over as head coach in trying to get those two players to DC. So we're excited that they've come in. So back to your question, going back to last year, we obviously knew we were picking up Crystal, and we had communicated with her prior to the draft, probably about a week ahead. I don't know how many coaches can speak to too many players because you're not quite sure where people are going to fall. We knew Crystal, we knew where she was going to fall, and it was going to be with us. So in the build up, there's communication that has to be had with different players, potentially with some agents. I think you also want to try and do as many mock drafts as possible and go and kind of get a feel of what other clubs might do. If we kept our number six pick, knowing what Chicago would pick at number five, I have absolutely no idea. I think that was going to be the toughest part. I think five and up was going to be very tough to predict. One to four, I feel very comfortable and confident. Who Sky Blue, Western New York, or obviously Houston, who those guys will pick up. So can you predict who's going where as close as you can? And then as well as looking at specific players like last year, we had some late picks, third and fourth round. We had some specific needs. We're excited with the ones that we picked up. They didn't quite work out for us at the time, just due to different reasons with Shasta, Molly Menchel. But we came out the draft with Tiffany Weimer, I didn't say a lot at the time, but I don't, there was no other team that walked out with a Crystal Dunn and Tiffany Weimer out of the draft, and although we had the first round and then some very late picks to walk out with those two players of that caliber, we were very happy, very excited. So a bit different this year with just the fourth round, but I don't think it means we have nothing to do. It's such a deep draft, and I think that there's going to be more movements in this draft than we saw last year or the last 2 years. I would predict that Portland, Seattle, they don't have many picks, neither do we. And I think that all three of us may have a little bit still to do. And then you've got other clubs with some good picks that may not have an interest in those picks once the cards start falling in each place, and may want to move them. So I predict this will be the most exciting draft in the last 2 years because of the potential movement on the draft day that could happen.
Yeah, a lot of different approaches of drafts. There are some coaches that will draft, especially if you've got a later pick, you either draft by position or you draft best available. What's some of your coaching philosophies when, say, that 30th pick comes up? Is it more of a part of the field you're looking for or the best athlete?
It depends where it falls. I have this conversation a lot. Sometimes it's very difficult to pass up on the best available player because and it depends on the gap. If the best available player and the player that meets a specific positional need, if that gap of ability is small, then you're probably going to go to your specific need. If the gap is bigger, then I think on the business side, you have to go with the best possible player. Whether that means you end up moving someone else because that player's coming in, or that player fights for a space and obviously has great value if they don't quite make it. But early in the first round or late in the third and fourth, I think those two, the question you asked, Charlie, is going to continuously be talked about and discussed between the coaches and GMs during the day on the draft.
And another question that always comes up too is people want to see a rookie go on the field right away, and a lot of these young women have played at top level college, they played top level high school, been an ODP. How's it when you get a player in a camp, sometimes managing that player to say to them, hey, you're not going to start, but you got to hang around for a season or two, just because we've seen a lot of players that may retire early because they're not getting the play time. How do you, as a coach, do you manage that type of personality?
I think the only experience that I can talk about is Bianca Sierra, who obviously moved on to Boston halfway through the year. She came in as a rookie, undrafted, and the expectations were set that she's fighting every single day in every single training session to get a contract. And she surpassed that. She was absolutely fantastic. She forced my hand in having to move and release a very experienced player because she ate it up every day. And then once she got a contract, similar conversations were had, and let her know her role in the squad and the areas that she has to continue to fight. And she did that. It was sad. It was tough to move her on. It was sad to move her on. But the where we were in the season and going forward, it was gonna. She had done her time and she had worked hard every day and she deserved the opportunity to play. And I didn't feel that we were gonna after her doing everything we had asked, the situation had changed for us. We brought in Nikki Cross and Alex Singer, and maybe the opportunities to play weren't there. So she was moved on and she played a lot at Boston, did very well. So I think it's just setting the expectations, setting standards, and setting targets. And the only experience we had last year with Bianca was very positive. At the same time, I think that that's not down to me and my communication or my management. A lot of the time, that's down to the player and what is the player made of. I agree with you, Charlie. I think this step is very tough psychologically. On the field, physically, technically, tactically, it's very tough. But psychologically, the players that are being drafted, I doubt ever in their soccer career they have had to sit on the bench. They have had to be patient. They've had to work hard and be a role player or a squad player. The first round, second round this year, I would love to know. I bet none of them have ever had that struggle and that period where where people will say you need to improve this and you're not getting what you want right now. So it's tough to predict, and I think that's the biggest. So for us, we only have a fourth round pick, but our scouting has been as detailed as it was last year because we have to be ready, we have to be prepared. We know some specific players that we want. One player in particular won't be in the draft and is heading to Europe, which we're disappointed about. We'd love to have seen Sotaro Murray in the league, and we'd love to have seen Sotaro Murray in DC. But our scouting has to be as detailed, and everyone gets to see what they look like on the field. And the biggest challenge and the most important task from my side anyway is finding out their personality, their character, how are they doing off the field, how are they doing on the field. And you rely on college coaches, you rely on youth national coaches that might have had experiences with them, and you also talk to maybe friends of that player and just try and find out about their character because I think that's gonna decide. A lot of the players, especially in this draft, has to have the ability. What's going to decide whether they're successful or not is their psychological strength, their mentality, and maybe they don't have it yet because they haven't been put in this position. So, have they had previous experiences that help them with this process? And now they adapt well to this struggle and this fight to get a contract, to stay on contract, to get into the team.
And one player that comes to mind is a veteran player that just recently retired from the professional side, and she just finished up winning the grand final in Cambria. That's Lori Lindsay. She was a player that, later in her career, she wasn't getting a full 90, but it seemed like she was a leader off the field for you, a vet that kind of pushes those players to see that, you don't always have to be a starter and play 90 to be a contributor to a team.
Yeah, I think Laurie didn't find herself in the team at the beginning of the season in this last season in 14. If anyone, if she can do it, then anyone should be able to do it. She's been there, seen it, done it all. She's an exceptional player, unbelievable leader, a role model. She has it all. And at the beginning, she was out of favor, and I was making some tough decisions. It was Western New York. The second game at home against Western New York after a trip to Kansas. We felt we needed to get her back onto the pitch. She came onto the pitch, thought she was excellent. I think she added a 10% to every other player, and I think from there she played an absolutely key role. It was a shame in the semi-final that she picked up a slight injury and we didn't have her out there, but she was integral to us on the field and off the field. But even at the beginning, during the time she wasn't playing for those few games, she was being as important as ever off the field, motivating and supporting those who were playing. And Laurie's done that all her career, and I can't pass comment too much because I haven't experienced it, been there and seen it. But if you talk to Steve Swanson, Jim Gabera, other coaches who had coached her, she's done that all her career. She's made a career from doing that, from being a total professional, working hard, demanding more, holding high standards. And she's represented her country and been a key player at national team level as well. With so much to do with that is due to the mentality. And yes, she has an unbelievable vision, creativity. She's key for teams' ball movement and ball possession, and she can definitely score goals. But the character side of Laurie, it's as good as it gets. There's not gonna. I remember on that last day against Sky Blue when we finished the game, and we had a little ceremony for her. I told her that I will never coach another player like her. Someone as special as her, and I was privileged and grateful that I, 18 months, a full season and a half to be around Laurie. And I know that I would have learned a lot more from her than she would have ever learned from me. And I'm grateful that I've been a part of her last few years in America.
I want to talk a little bit about your signing the off season. You've had some other veterans coming in now that bring in the experience. I mean, you've signed through the trade through the Flash. You've got Reynolds, Salem, and then you also picked up Joe Lohman. You picked up Amanda DaCosta, and even you picked up from Bristol Natasha Harding. What are some of these players to bring to your squad? Some things that we may see on the field this year.
Yeah, we're unbelievably excited about the players that we've signed and been able to bring in. I think we've overachieved. Some of these players, the likes of Catherine Reynolds, Angela Salem, Joe Lohman, uh, even Ariana Romero, those players have been targets for, some have been targets for 12 months. And then some have been targets for 6 months. Even Kelsey Wise, who we picked up, I think we saw her in the draft, and we felt that would be if we had the availability in our roster to pick up a goalkeeper, that would be our first choice. So to pick up those players in the league that have been key targets, it's just unbelievable success. Never envisioned being able to get all these players, and then Amanda DaCosta. Although she's been a target for say 12 months, I think that her availability and her contract situation at Liverpool, we did not anticipate being able to get in there and pick her up, and we invested a lot of time, and it was a long hard process to make sure we could bring DaCosta to DC. She's wanted to come to DC from the word go, and she's very excited. But I think almost every club in the league wanted DaCosta, and we managed to pull it off. We, through hard work and good work, we pulled it off and got her here. And then Natasha Harding, same. That we watched her last year. I liked her. I think she had her best year in her career in 13. In 14, she continued. The team Bristol weren't as successful, So Natasha's stats weren't as high, but her performances were still very strong. And obviously have a lot of friends in England. And when I ask for character reference and also just confirming what I'm seeing on video, um, Tasha Harding's probably been one of the players that I've yet to find someone to say any kind of medium or negative thing about her. Everything is extremely positive. Every player, every coach that I've come across, including some international coaches that have worked with her, the feedback from her for her is positive. She's unbelievably excited to get here, as much as we are for her to get here. So although again, we didn't feel that Harding was a realistic target. We've watched her and seen her for a long time until the first phone call. I got off the first phone call with her, and I couldn't believe that her response was very positive and she was interested in this. And the communication was very fast. I think from us, because we really wanted her, and as it developed, she wanted to be here. So all those players, I know I've kind of broken it up into the players from the league and then some players coming from England. All of them have been long targets. And Joe Lohman, I worked with my first involvement with Washington Spirit was with DC United Women. I was the U20 coach, and Joe was here with DC United Women, and really respected the professional she is and the quality she brings. But I'll be very honest about Joe. Is we played Boston 3 times last year. I think she was the best centre midfielder in 2 of those games. Out of all the players that played, she was the best in 2 of those games. And me and my staff walked away, and we said if there was an opportunity to bring Lohman to DC, then we would do everything we could to do it, because she's got some great years ahead of her, even though she's obviously an experienced player. She's coming home. I think that adds some more motivation, and we get a lot of experience from her. So I think summary is we did not feel we could hit all the targets that we've hit. We did not think that was possible. I think we've overachieved. We've brought every player we've gone after. We've been successful. And I think we what's key is that we've also signed some other players onto new contracts, like so Christine Narn and Tori Huster. I think were big for us last year. We've been able to re-sign them and keep them here. Obviously, Tiffany Weimer, Caroline Miller coming back from injury, and we got them on new contracts. Can't wait for them to come in. So the roster's looking exciting, and I still feel that we probably have a tiny bit to do. Maybe one or two more moves. Just to we're very close to signing an exceptional international, and hopefully in the next few weeks we can get that out. Just finalising the paperwork. If that comes through, then maybe we're set. Maybe there's one more. But we're right now, if set in how everything looks right now, I think we've done all the staff and including the owner Bill, who plays a big role with me in this process. I think we've done an excellent job.
Yeah, I got a little interesting story about just when you think about Joe Lohman, how hard she works. This was back in when she played in her Philadelphia days. I guess it's old WPS days. This would have been 2011. Was a game. I forget who they played. They might have played Sky Blue, but it was Philadelphia Independence game. And Joe Lohman had played the game. She probably didn't play, on her standards, the best game. I thought she played a brilliant game. But after the match, me and John, my partner, wanted to interview her, and she said she wanted to do a little post game workout. And it was just that you see her running suicides and running laps back and forth on the pitch after the game's gone final, because she just felt that she didn't put enough out there. So she wanted to do some fitness work after the game. And I mean, that's the kind of player you want. And you see other players on the roster, seeing this player that probably had a decent game. In her mind, she thought she could have done better, but then just running laps afterwards to burn off that energy. I mean, that's can be contagious to other players.
Yeah, I saw that when she was in DC with DC United Women. I remember one night we trained at the same time. One night storms came over. We couldn't go outside, and we went inside. We went inside for 90 minutes, and there's obviously a limited amount you can do inside, but we did work very hard. And then once training finished, everyone left, and Joe asked if she could stay and keep the lights on, and she probably did another 45 minutes. She has that mentality. She has that drive to continue. And I think that's why she is still improving and still getting better. And I think she's a role model for younger players. And that experience, that drive is going to be very valuable. But I think as well as that, she's joining a group that a lot that have that same mentality. I mean, last year we had a lot of players that have that same mentality, and we're trying to bring those specific players to DC. I think that's the difference in us making playoffs or not is having players of that character willing to do the extra bit and willing to do that extra work as well as having the quality and the intelligence. So she'll be joining, I think, a very hard-working group.
You guys had a pretty successful W League team. You guys had the runners-up down in Florida in the championship. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way your club would have wanted. But I mean, that's probably been a good feeder, knowing you've got that good of a backup reserve team with some really talented players there too.
Yeah, we're very pleased. We're very happy with our reserve team. I mean, we have the luxury that they train next to us every day, and most of the time they're getting in, and some of those players have been invited to train with the pro team. So we got to see a lot of those players very closely last year. In addition to that, I probably made every home game that we had, and keep a close contact with those players and the staff. And we're very happy with the structure of our club from U10 at the Super Y all the way up to U20 reserve team and pro team. I have the luxury of communicating with all those staff and overseeing it, and I think we're still taking strides towards it. But we have a great model here that allows players to progress and to play within a club structure and a club identity. And if the players are performing and doing what they need to be, there's opportunities to continue to progress. So a Royal Reserve team, it's exciting to know that we already know a lot of those players. And this fall, as well as recruiting, or should I say, scouting for the college draft. There's also a lot of recruitment for our reserve team for the sophomore and juniors that won't be graduating. We've identified some top players that we're excited to come into our reserve team this year.
I want to thank you for your time, Mark. We've been chatting for a while, and I know you're probably as hungry as I am to get the 2015 season underway. I mean, probably seems like it could come quicker for you. You got all these players, and that's probably one of the toughest things as a coach. You just want to get out there in the field with your players.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think everyone normally tries to say this because it gets people excited. I'm saying it because I believe it. I think this year is going to be the most exciting year for the league. There's a few clubs that have kind of ripped up their roster and are taking, changing things up. So it's exciting to see how they pan out. You've got the World Cup, and then more specific. I think for us in Washington, on paper, we're set up for the best year of our 3 years. I feel that with foundations laid last year with key players and additions to that group, and the staff having a full 1 year experience together, everyone's only going to be better. And I think for DC fans, it's going to be a fantastic year. I can't wait to get going.
Well, thank you for your time, and I'll see you at the draft in a few weeks. Mark, thanks a lot.
Take care. Cheers, Charlie.